Hello, Mr. Manuelliam. And possibly Mr. Sherpod Bread. I'm not sure who's listening into these anymore. But yeah, welcome to my, apparently, Let's Play channel now. After the Celeste re-upload, I need to prove that I can, in fact, play video games when they're not side-scrolling platformers, so here is Bastion with the Stranger's Dream at all 10 idols invoked. I don't think either of you have played Bastion before, but since this is the dream section, it doesn't actually have any story spoilers, so it works out pretty well. Every character has a dream area where you fight off waves of enemies, and in between the narration will usually tell you a little bit about their backstory. This is the Stranger's Dream, which is, I think it's the hardest just because it's like the longest one is 30 waves, and I think the others are about like 15 to 20, I'd say. And it's like going through every letter of the alphabet. Not literally every single letter of the alphabet, but it does feel like every letter of the alphabet. And it's like, it's also pulling enemies from every section of the game instead of one area, since, you know, Stranger's kind of like mysterious old dude. He's the narrator, actually, if you hear him. Oh yeah, this is the wave with the scumbags. Those are what the enemies are called. And this run went pretty okay, but usually I get smacked by one of them, and the thing that happens when they smack you is you go zooming off the edge at like Mach 5. If you time it right, you can like get them to charge off the edge themselves, but I'm really bad at doing that. And whenever I try, I end up falling off the edge and they don't, so in this case I've chosen to simply mortar them. But yeah, the idols are, in fiction, you're invoking different gods who are making each enemy a little harder to kill, because same way the Pact of Punishment works in Hades. You can see Olak and Garmuth proccing my fucking below this. Yeah, Olak's whenever they go intangible, that's him. Enemies will randomly become unable to be hurt. And if you see a little mirror symbol, that's Garmuth. Sometimes attacks will just randomly be reflected, which usually that's fine, but sometimes RNGs really just fucks you, you know? Honestly, they're kind of just the two most, like, visible ones, though. I think Lemaine's probably the one who's actually killing me the most. You'll notice that whenever I take damage, I get slowed down, so whenever you get hit, you're probably going to get hit again, and at that point you're too slow to dodge roll out of there, so you just kind of die to death on the spot. And I think Messia is the one who is making enemies regenerate health, and they regenerate it so fucking fast, too. You leave a guy alone for like a minute and then he's back to full HP. But yeah. But they're not as, like, immediately visually noticeable, so I think I'm giving Olak and Garmuth too much flack. There's also Rothus, who, like, changes the playstyle in an interesting way. You'll see that, like, you know the little potion bottle looking things underneath my health? The green ones are just like health potions, regular style, and then the black ones are black tonic. So you have like a special ability that you can assign whatever special ability you want, and each of them spends one black tonic. Usually I would actually be going in with 5, but because Rothus's thing is that no tonics will drop, usually I would be getting more health potions as I fought on, but because of Rothus, like, nothing is dropping, so you just have 5 health potions, and you just have the amount of black tonics you're carrying in with you, so anything that uses special abilities just really becomes pretty unviable as a strategy. Normally I would have the distillery option that's giving me 2 extra black tonics, but it's not really worth it here. I know I was actually doing a different achievement that's, I think it's called Hard Bargain. It's to score 1,000,000 points in, literally 1,000,000 points in score attack mode, which the strategy there is to just don't have Rothos invoked and take all the Black Tonic upgrades and just do the special ability that lets you drop a fucking turret and just create a turret army of like 50 million turrets, and it just rinses all enemies as you build your little turret parapet in the middle of the grounds, and it's fantastic. But because Rothus is out, that's just not a viable strategy. Because there's no way to replenish anything. Oh yeah, here you can see these enemies are called lunkheads, the like frog-ish ones. The way you're supposed to fight them is you're supposed to like juke around them. They're really armored on their face, so you're supposed to hit them in the back, but I'm really, really bad at the hitboxes on these guys. There's like a bigger variation of them in later waves that like every time they just hit me, I try to get around them, but they just hit me, normal style, and so I would just come in with you see I have the spear that will deal damage. The final upgrade on it will ignore armor, so I can just stab them in the face for slightly less damage, but I figure it's worth it in the end. I take less damage. I think I take less damage on the net total, anyway. But yeah. Oh, and here we have the, this wave has the Ura Pincushion combo, which, not pictured, are all the previous times when I got fucking destroyed by them, because, again, with Lemaine slowing you down every time you take a hit, with the Pincushion and the, I think those are, like, crossbows, you can just take a lot of hits consecutively, and then you just kind of get stuck there, and then you get shot to death. It's great. Anyway. Pretend I do this well on all my runs. Yeah, the Ura enemies are... they're like... There's a different dream that is all Ura enemies, or almost all, like, well, they're all enemies from, like, that zone of the game, but that one is so much easier because it doesn't spawn in the fucking pincushions at the same time. And, like... It took, not pictured are the amount of times that it took me to get the hang of, like, aiming the mortar where they're going to be. Yeah, here we've got the machete ladies who... I don't think I get hit with them in this run, but if you do, their final attack is just, like, slice you 50 million times with a machete, and it sucks. Yeah. What was that one about? Right, Rothus, with the health tonics. It's actually, it's kind of, normally the game is pretty generous with its health tonics, but again, with Rothus out, nothing drops, and so you kind of have to have the, there's this, like, so in Bastion, it lets you choose the 2 weapons you come in with, it lets you pick your special ability, and, the weapon upgrades that you have on those weapons, but the fourth thing is that it has the distillery, where you have like a collection of drinks and each drink will do a different effect. So like, for example, one of them is like, oh, you get more black tonics. That's the one that'll give you 5 black tonics instead of 3. And in fiction, I think you're just getting plastered before you go into a fight, which I think is quite fun. But there's one called Leechade, which is whenever you deal damage, you heal a little bit, and that's kind of almost mandatory on the 10 idle run, because otherwise health is just so shit, especially on the Stranger's Dream, which is 30 waves. I do think that, like, I think the Stranger's Dream with 10 idols on does kind of force you into the Pike, Mortar, Leechade combo. Like, I've seen a couple comments on Steam from people who use, like, the flamethrower instead, but basically everyone's like, yeah, you gotta have a mortar on. Just for, like, damage. And, you'll notice, you probably have seen it by now, the mortar will, like, bounce off of enemies if it gets reflected, but because it does blast damage, it'll probably still hit them anyway, so it's really useful for that. Like, I did a lot of experimenting before I came in with the mortar and the pike, and it was just like, The scrap musket, which I usually like quite a bit, it's kind of a like scatter shotgun. It just does piss damage in this mode because the enemy armor is too high, and like usually I like to go with the pike and breaker bow combo, but it just was not work. Like, I switched off of the breaker bow after trying for like 3 runs to the mortar, and I was like, I am clearing through waves like twice as fast with the mortar. It's just the damage simply does not catch up. And the pike is like, it's really good. It's probably the longest range of the short range weapons, if that makes sense, and it deals like a really solid amount of damage. I also tried this with the machete instead, but it was just, you need to be way too close to enemies, and the hammer is too slow, though. I expect the hammer probably does more damage overall. I haven't actually checked. Yeah, actually, you see right now I'm fighting, it's called an ankle gator, and like, I do like the fact that in the game, you find the different weapons in different parts of the world, and like the narrator will tell you like, oh, this was the weapon used by the fighting force that like was stationed here, and you can kind of tell mechanically, like the pike is found where you in like roughly in the area where you deal with ankle gators, I think, and it's like, yeah, it's really like, you can tell the pike is really good at killing ankle gators, like mechanically too, and it feels, to me, it feels like a really good world building detail of like, it feels real that, oh yeah, there were people who lived here, and this is the weapon they came up with to deal with the terrible little critter who lives here, and is attacking you right now. And that just, it works really well for me. Even though, like, again, I think it kind of gets lost in the 10 idols setup, because it's like, a lot of the weapons just don't really work when enemy armor has been shifted like that, or like when reflections. The Calamity Cannon is the weapon that you usually use at like the end to, actually, that's a bit of a spoiler, but basically it's like just a big fuck off cannon that takes a long time to charge, but just, you know, flings a cannon of energy at things. But because Garmuth is on with the reflection thing, half the time it just takes a long time to charge and then just bounces off of it, and if you have my kind of luck, it bounces directly onto your face. So it's just not really viable as a weapon in this setup. Even though I did try it, because it's just, I think it deals probably the most damage. That might not be true. It might just look impressive. I've never really looked into the numbers for this game, because that's not really the way I play. I think the flamethrower still holds up, though, because, I mean, it's a flamethrower. The crowd control is just fantastic on that one. Yeah, I can kind of see them also trying to be careful what order I clear enemies in, because, like, I don't want to proc these mini ankle gators before I've dealt with everything else that's spitting projectiles at me. Honestly, I got pretty lucky on this run with the mini ankle gators. Usually, it's really hard to line them up so you hit both of them at the same time, but if they desync, you just, it's a whole mess. Usually one of them attacks you faster than the other one, so you can get launched in the air, and it's a whole bit. It worked out for me this time. So, small mercies. Oh, this is the poisoned crossbow guys. These guys rinse me every time, usually. You can see that. Yeah, because of the blurred vision, you'll see I just shot, like, a corpse because I couldn't figure it out, and there we go. It's weirdly hard to keep track of,
Still with me.
I think it might be because it's also muffling the audio, but a lot of times I will simply die without realizing it, because it's also taking down my health so fucking quickly. But made it through this one alright, on this run at least. But yeah, I think, like, as always, I connect everything back to Pathologic 2 because I'm a Pathologic 2 girly. But when I played Patho 2, like, when I tried to, I think it was on my 3rd playthrough where, like, there's this moment in, like, I think day 2 where you can buy a revolver really early on for, like, relatively pretty cheap price. But I just never did it because I was like, I don't think the revolver is very good. I think I can use my money better elsewhere. But I finally Googled, like, oh, is it actually worth getting the revolver? Because, you know, maybe I'm wrong. And it was so funny because the first Google result was something like, oh, you should definitely get the revolver. It's like, if you hit someone in the head with it, it's the headshot will insta-kill them. So it's a really solid weapon, you know, it's range, you can get it for pretty cheap, bullets aren't that hard to find, you know, blah blah. And then the second result was like, someone like, revolver is shit, you should never get the revolver, that gun jams so much, half the time it kills me because it just jams at the wrong time. It's like, alright now. But, like, whenever I looked on the forum, everyone would have a different answer on what the best weapon was, because, like, I think there was someone who was like, oh, if you're going to go for a gun, the army rifle and the shotgun are probably your best bets, because, you know, I mean, you've played an FPS before, you know how shotguns and rifles work. But then someone else was like, oh, well, the guns are pretty hard to maintain, they break pretty quickly, and the resource that you use to fix them is the same resource used to fix other complex machinery, so you might want to allocate it somewhere else. And also, like, bullets are pretty expensive to buy, and if you're trading for the bullets, like, it's not a great deal, you know? And, like, otherwise, in all my runs, I just traded all of my bullets for other shit that I wanted more, and I just sold all the guns for a lot of money. And then, like, I remember there was someone who was like, oh, I just used the revolver and the kitchen knife, and it's like, that is a weapon combination I never imagined using, because the kitchen knife does such bad damage despite being a kitchen knife. It's, like, durable, because I assume because you're using it as a knife and that's what it's meant to be used for, but it just does not do damage. But the person was like, oh, you know, you shoot them with a revolver at at range, and then when they come into melee, you finish them off with a kitchen knife. And I'm like, I would never have even imagined doing that. Like, respect, but, like, what the fuck? And, like, there was someone else who was like, you're all wrong, you should be using lockpicks. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because apparently, if you sneak attack someone with a lockpick that is almost broken, it will break as you attack with it, and that will deal, like, not infinite damage, but enough damage to insta-kill any entity in the game. So, like, it is technically, quote-unquote, the best weapon, but also, like, it's pretty hard to get a lockpick at well, it's not difficult, but, you know, you have to keep track of your lockpick durability, and also they take up a lot of inventory space, blah, blah, blah. And I was just, like, reading all this, and I'm like, you're all wrong. The Lancet Scalpel is my best friend. Like, it deals a solid amount of damage. It's not the highest damage scalpel in the game, but it's high enough that it really doesn't matter. It's got good durability, even though you're also doing autopsies with it, so you've got, like, 2 durability drains on it. The thing that repairs it is pretty easy to get. It's just I love the Lancet Scalpel. It's just, like... Anyway, I can't believe I still remember this much about it. But yeah, like... It's just... You know, Pathologic 2 is not really comparable to Bastion, because, like, they're just 2 completely different styles of game. But, like, I did love that you could just put... There was no solid, like, this is the best weapon, this is the most optimized build, the way that Bastion kind of has with the Pike Mortar combo here. Like, it's just, like... You can just fuck around and find out, you know? Like, it's fun to me. But yeah, like... Anyway. I got back into Bastion because actually, you know that Worm My Hero fanfic crossover thing that I keep rambling about? I finally finished writing the first chapter of it, and like, it was like I had just done too much thinking and like literary criticism bullshit for these two mediums, and I was like, I need to turn my brain off. I need to go like scroll through Reddit or like get caught up, like really caught up on YouTube discourse drama or something. Just turn my brain off for a minute. No critical analysis. So I was like, you know what? Might as well get back into Bastion. It's been a minute. I've always wanted to finish getting the achievements for it. So here I am. Honestly, I think I might have built like the perfectly unreadable crossover fic, which is itself something I'm kind of proud of. The Worm and My Hero fandoms kind of scare me a little anyway, so probably for the best of engagements a bit lower. I think, like, because it is set in the Worm universe and follows, like, it generally follows the vibe of Worm more. It's also in first person because, like, Worm itself is in first person, so a lot of its fanfics are also in first POV. And I think that will bounce the My Hero people right off of it. And then on the other side, I replaced some of pretty beloved Worm characters with a My Hero counterpart instead, and I think that'll bounce the Worm people right off it. So I may have created the perfectly unreadable story. However, anyone who's still here will be insane in the exact same way that I am, so all three of us will have fun, probably. Yeah, all the, like, extant My Hero Worm crossovers are, like, they're usually, most of the popular ones are Izuku has, like, a power from Worm, and that's the extent of the, like, crossing over of the mediums. And, like, I think Worm has the better world building, so we should go the other way around, hence why I'm writing this. There's also a couple of really interesting fics where it's, like, because One for All works in a very similar way to a power in Worm, people have been drawing a line between that, but it's most of those are like one-shots. I wish they were longer. I wish they were multi-chapter, but they simply are not, so. Because in Worm there's a character called the Butcher. I want to say we're on Butcher 14? It's either 14 or 15, but the way the power works is that the person who kills the Butcher becomes the next Butcher because you get all of the powers of every previous person as well as their voice in your head. So the Butcher is a horrible mess that has a lot of powers. Most of the people in there are villains, so it's just a bad time. And so on the hero side, they have like to me a very interesting question of like, okay, we cannot kill this. No one wants to kill this person. Lethal force is out of the question. But they have enough powers that we can't contain them non-lethally either. So they're just like, to me, they're a really interesting, like, narrative issue that I wish Canon Worm had used more, and there's like a couple of different fanfics that are all exploring the same general vibe of like, let's put focus on the Butcher. This is a fascinating power set. Oh, here I am. This is the final wave, and you would not believe how many times I have died on this fucking wave on the very last one. Because the Ura enemy here is like the, not like final boss, quote unquote. Not really, but kind of, you know? And they just fucking rinse you. That's why I toss down the turrets. This is the only time I use the special ability in the run. It is to put down the turrets to draw fire away from me. It doesn't, this kind of works. I might have better luck if I brought in, there's a handful of different special abilities that toss down decoys or ally creatures. There's actually a second turret type, actually. So, it's that kind of game, but yeah. I should really be using the shield more, but I'm not in the habit because most games simply do not give you an unlimited shield. And I'm really bad at the timing on countering, so But yeah, that's my Bastion run, I guess, for the Stranger's Dream. Till next time.